Excellent.
Firstly, thank you very much, Tad, for coming to my show.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. It's great to get to meet you. And how do I say your name? Is it Sai?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Cool.
So I've gone through your profile. I can see you are doing different jobs, different works. So I thought to tell about you and the work that you are doing to my audience.
Awesome. Yeah. So let me get started. I'll kind of do the fast forward version of my history. I've been in technology for many years. So I'll do the fast forward version, and then I expect you'll dive in on anything that you think your viewers might be interested in. So I got my start, back when I got my first computer, back in the pre, kind of PC era. So my first computer was a Commodore 64. I got one of those when I was 10, and I had been hectoring my parents to get me one for at least 3 years. So they finally gave in. And that really pretty much set, as soon as I got my first computer, I kind of knew what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I was going to start, I envisioned myself essentially as a programmer for the rest of my life, writing code and so on. And I really did that, all the way through high school, all the way through college. And then most of my first kind of 15 years of my career were all rising in the ranks of software development. So starting, writing assembly code on the Commodore 64, all the way to building telecom big iron boxes. So these are boxes that route calls across the internet, infrastructure for networking, stuff like we're doing, operating systems and so on. And I rose up through the ranks there. Graduated from college, went to Bell Labs, and got to work with the Unix researchers in the Unix research lab, where they had invented both Unix, which of course most of modern infrastructure runs on a variant of, and certainly all the concepts from it are prevalent. So I got to work on Plan 9, which was the next gen operating system they came out with. In fact, there's a box set of it on my shelf over there. And then Inferno, which was the third gen operating system. And from there, I went and we built voice over IP telephone switches. This is the late 90s, on top of Inferno and related technologies. I did that in Bell Labs. That was great. Got to meet and learn with those people. And then I followed my boss to Silicon Valley, and that really kind of opened up my eyes a ton. And about 4 years into my professional career, I ended up becoming, a founding engineer at a big, telecom company. And this is back when the first internet bubble was bursting. We got started right before the internet bubble burst, and then we rode through that downturn. So that was pretty exciting. During that time, we built telecom edge routers and what we called a multi-service access platform. My claim to fame from, that's 2000 through 2009. That kind of 9 or 10 years of my career. Claim to fame was in 2004. We delivered fiber to the home as a product, and I could give you a gigabit symmetric in 2004 for like $80 a month. Now I couldn't even buy that, in Silicon Valley for my own house until I think 2019. So it taught me a lesson in the telecom industry, and this is as I started to transition from just being a pure developer to thinking about the business aspects and how does this stuff work, and then go and engineer my way through startups. The really interesting thing is, despite us delivering this amazing technology, in 2004, and then it being more than a decade before I could buy it, commercially myself as a customer, I realized the telecom industry moves super slow and has got a ton of regulation, and the incentive structure is not well aligned to give between the companies what makes them money and what consumers need. And so I decided to move on to a new industry because structurally there's a lot of government regulation and so on, and it's pretty hard to influence that market. So after that, I built a storage company, a data storage company. And you can see, I don't know if you can see on my shelf, that's a hard disk drive pack from back in the day. when, hard drives were the size of, washing machines. So pretty fun. And then that box on top of my shelf, that's the first product we shipped from my company, Exablocks, which is about, that device holds about 80 terabytes. It looks like a piece of, home stereo equipment, but indeed it's a enterprise, piece of infrastructure. So pretty cool. That was a real learning experience for me, building a company that delivers a product to enterprise rather than being the person, in the code every day, building the actual software. And it was challenging and it was hard. And mad props to my team who stayed with me despite, my flaws and as I was learning how to do that. And eventually, after about 6 or 7 years, that company got to a really great state. We built that up to about 60 people. And we sold that company to StorageCraft, which is another data storage company that services the same market. It was a great partnership with them. And I moved on to Google Cloud. And this is almost the most recent thing in my career. I wanted to accomplish a couple things by going to Google. The main one being Google Cloud was pretty new in the hyperscaler market at the time. This is 2016. And it had made a good play on App Engine, which was platform as a service and kind of the precursor to all the serverless offerings that you might see out in this space as well. But I felt like it was missing some key pieces of technology that enterprise needed in order to actually move into public cloud from their own data centers. So I ended up bringing to market something called FileStore, which was file storage solutions for Google Cloud, which made a lot of sense given I came from a company that built a file storage product. I had spent the prior 6 or 7 years of my life becoming a deep expert in that space. And so what we did is we brought to market a product, we acquired a company, we grew the team, and by the time I left in 2021, we had built that business up to a really important business for Google Cloud. And the team had grown to somewhere north of 120 people. Most of that came, or about half of that came through the acquisition, and then we continued hiring just to grow. And we delivered 3 products in that space. So we built from nothing, kind of like a startup inside a large company even. We went from nothing to a whole portfolio of file storage products for Google Cloud. And we unblocked a whole bunch of enterprise adoption, which worked out really, really well. And after I felt like I got that into a good spot, I switched to Gradient Ventures, which is Google's seed stage venture fund. And in that role, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And working in a very, very large company was awesome because there's so many resources behind what you're doing. And as long as the product area you're working in has opportunity to generate revenue for them, you can generally good decisions are made, and it's fun to work there. But I was really hankering to get back to startups. So Gradient Ventures was great because I had a role where I was the product management partner and chief resident. In those roles, I got to advise our portfolio companies, and we're investing in, you can go look at the Gradient Ventures portfolio, but there's a couple hundred companies in the portfolio. So I got to go, instead of thinking about large product portfolios, I got to go back to my roots in startups and think a lot about and help companies with their product market fit and go to market strategies as they were launching new products to market. Kind of more the MVP, and let's prove there's a product here, and let's pivot until we find something that sticks, and now let's figure out how to scale that. And so that was super fun. Great team at Gradient, great set of portfolio companies. Really great exit while I was there with Streamlit, got acquired by Snowflake. That was one of our portfolio companies, and so that was super exciting to watch that process from the investor side instead of from the company, the entrepreneur side or the acquirer side. So now the really interesting thing about my career is not only have I built the products, but now I've also acquired a company, I've been acquired, and I've looked at how it works from the investment side. So I have a really holistic view of how how best to build companies, and how that might be useful for folks. And then the most recent thing, and then I'll stop talking and let you ask some questions. The most recent thing is we have a 9-year-old son that's super into Minecraft. And so when I left Gradient Ventures, what we decided to do is there were no great services for parents to help their kids play Minecraft online with their friends. And so what we embarked on is we built a business called mcplaydates.com. And it is Minecraft server hosting for parents today. And we're expanding into educators and esports leagues in clubs right now as well. So it's a business growing fast and super exciting. And the whole family is working on it. So it's super fun to do a family run business.
And how it's going now, your own business?
Our business is going great. We launched in December after beta. We ran a private beta for about a year with, a bunch of early adopter customers, mostly parents of fairly young, Minecrafters, as they're called, kids playing Minecraft. And that went really well, and we learned a ton from that year-long beta. And then I left Gradient Ventures in September of 2022, so September this past year, and we decided to double down on this business. Instead of doing it as sort of a small thing, we're actually going to go and turn it into a real scalable business. And so what we did is we spent basically September, through mid-December, adding a bunch of functionality and features based on that private beta to support our customers. And then when we launched, now it's all been switched to all the go-to-market activities. Instead of the building of the infrastructure and the technology and the platform for hosting Minecraft servers, it's now all going to market. It's actually going really, really well. With only a couple weeks after, I can't give you I don't want to give you some business metrics. It's too early for that, in terms of, number of, revenue and number of customers. That's kind of proprietary information. But I will say that we've signed up our first esports league. We're working with our first educator, and of course parents keep signing up as well. So it's really great because this is first time for me and actually all of us doing consumer SaaS as a business. And the whole go-to-market piece of bringing a product to market for consumers is a lot different than the majority of my career, which is bringing products to market for enterprise. There's quite a bit of difference in how do you find the customers, how do you figure out how to get in front of them, and with the value you're creating.
And you have users from?
Actually, we have users from all around the world right now. So we have data centers even in India and all over Asia and the US and Europe. So we're in 36 different regions with our service. And I think the customer, so we're based out of Boulder, Colorado, which is kind of the middle of the Rocky Mountains in the US. It's nice and snowy outside today, but I'm not going skiing. I'm talking to you today. So I think a customer that's the furthest away from us is in Singapore, which is another location where we have a data center, in fact. And they were a very early customer, a very early adopter. In fact, in our next newsletter that we're going to be publishing tomorrow, we'll feature one of their builds that they've done in their Minecraft server. So there'll be a little video recording of their world as walking through, what have they used our service to build and play in with their kids and their kids' friends. So super exciting.
And what is your motivation to do or to start this?
Yeah, great question. I have a couple motivations. One, I think it can be, there's a need in the market for an easy way for parents to be able to let their kids play with their friends in their Minecraft worlds, but not out on the internet at large where they're playing with random people on the internet. You got to realize, kids start playing Minecraft as early as 5 or 6 years old. And let's say you're a teenager, great, go out on the internet at large and deal with the wackos that you're gonna run into. But if you're a 5 or 6 year old, I think the parents have a little bit, maybe up to 10, 11, right? Depending on the kid and the parents, really they need something where they can be very confident it's going to be safe and secure for their kids. Their kids are only going to chat with people they know, right? And play with people they know and that they've approved. And so I think that's one aspect of it. It's the safe and secure aspect of it. The second is it's incredibly hard to configure a Minecraft server so that if you have this desire where your kids are only going to play with their friends, it's actually super hard to make that happen as a parent, unless you're already a technical person. Like for me, like it was like super fun configuring a server for my kid, right? Like I'm like, oh look, I get to go edit config files and basically write a bunch of YAML files and stuff like that, which is basically coding, which I did for first half of my career. So it's kind of like getting back to the basics, super fun. But let's say you're the average parent, that's not your ball of wax, right? Whatever. That's not the thing that you're going to get excited about, right? Like, yay, I get to go write some config files for this random software I downloaded from the internet. And in fact, it's probably, not only is it not your cup of tea, but it's actually downright scary and challenging. Right? Because how do you know you're setting it up safely and securely, and you're not letting random people into your network, and there's not security vulnerabilities to deal with, and so on. Stuff that we're used to dealing with in enterprise. How do we harden the perimeter? So folks, attackers can't get in. If you're an average parent, that's probably not something you want to spend your time learning about how to do. And then when we look at the average Minecraft hosting services is an existing space, right? Like it's an existing market. It's a good business for a lot of companies. But when you look at all of the competition, what quote unquote competition, and I don't really see them as competition. I think we're servicing different parts of the market. They all lead with tech specs, right? Again, servicing the parent. You go to a Minecraft hosting service, that you Googled for, and when the opening page is 10 different servers to pick from with different numbers of gigabytes of RAM and different CPUs and so on, you're probably like, well, I don't know which one, like, how am I supposed to know, right? And so that's the other aspect of it is I think those services are great for experts. Like, let's say you've been hosting Minecraft servers for a couple of years. You have very specific things you want to do. You want to set up a tournament and you understand all that technology because you've had a bunch of experience. Great. Like, go use one of those services. I think they're going to be awesome for that. They're going to give you a more low level access into the infrastructure to set it up. But if you're the parent that wants their kids to play with their friends, all they should have to do is say, let my kid play with my friend with the friends, and here's their gamer tags, right? Like, here's who they can play with, and maybe here's what times they can play, right? If you notice, none of that is technology. All of that it's all about the goal you're trying to achieve, right? Like, let my kid play with these people at these times. And that's our goal, is to be super simple. So that's all you have to do.
So there is two persons in you, an entrepreneur as a person, and also a builder, a software builder. So
exactly.
Talking with people is different from talking with computer. So you did both.
It is. And in fact, I have a great analogy here from starting my first business. When I started Exoblocks, I had been a founding engineer at a startup. And so I understood the entrepreneurship, I thought, from the building side. I was, a bunch of other people in our venture-backed startup were responsible kind of defining the product, and it was my job to make it reality, right? And that was a lot of fun. When I started my company, what I realized is I had spent my entire career talking to computers, and I'm an introvert. And so, when it came to what do I have to do to actually build a company and to go recruit a team and, to go talk to customers and bring that you do the customer discovery, figure out what features and functionality they need, what's lacking in the market, and so on. All of that was brand new to me, right? And so I came at that like an engineering exercise, right? I figured that, and as I started Exablocks, we bootstrapped for a year before we raised venture funding. And because raising funding and talking to customers, that's all essentially outward facing, I have to talk to people instead of computers. In that case, what I did during the starting of that company was I would reward myself. Like the way I was able to kind of figure this out is I would reward myself with a week of writing code for spending a week talking to people. All right. And that was sort of my like, okay, I talked to people for a week. I can go bang out some code again. Which was awesome. And eventually, of course, that turned into, I really understand how this, how to do that and so on. And that was a great learning experience through that time. And then I leveraged a lot of that learning and of course learned a lot more when I was at Google. And that job at Google was all product management and people management. None of it was about building anything myself. It was about specifying, talking to customers and bringing that data back to the team. And then helping the organization decide what that team needed to look like in order to succeed in that market. And so I leveraged all of that skill set I had built during building Exablocks in order to actually build that vision for this whole portfolio of products in Google Cloud. And then, kind of steer a team executing towards it rather than being the feet on the ground actually doing it. And the really fun thing with Minecraft Playdates is I get to wear all those hats. So in Minecraft Playdates, it's not only am I, out doing customer discovery, which is 90% of my day right now, in the average day, but it's also then taking that data back and then going to, flesh out the product and build the product out to make sure, and the service to make sure it's going to be able to deliver on those things the customers have told me they need. And so it's super fun because I get to wear all the hats. And it's also super fun because this is a family business instead of a venture-backed business. And so, the whole family is chipping in. My son does play testing. You'll see a video on our website that he published about that's going to go live this weekend about, how to survive your first night in survival Minecraft, where the mobs are out to get you. So, video that my son published, put together and scripted. My wife is doing a lot of our content. And helping on the customer and kind of, prospecting side. And so it's actually super fun. We get to all do this together.
So all this experience being in technology, working in different roles. So can I say everything that you did in the past, you collected that and you created something today, which is making you get success?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. So most of the products I brought to market and in my career, I've brought at this point over 30 products to market in mostly in enterprise space. Like I was saying before, Minecraft Playdates or MC Playdates is the first consumer product I brought to market. And so if I think about, how many people have I helped get their jobs done. I help build the infrastructure of the internet on the networking side. I help deliver storage products that enterprises need to store, the videos that you're creating and all the content you're creating. And so I feel like, how many lives have I been able to impact? I'm not sure. Like I don't have a count, because I count customers by enterprises, and then of course the enterprise counts their customers, as people like us. But again, telecom, storage, hyperscale compute, I think those are three main technologies that underpin a lot of the world today. And especially, with supercomputers in our pocket, it's super interesting to think about, how much that, and that's just really gratifying, right? To feel like, hey, I made a difference in the world there. And then with MC Playdates, it's awesome to think about I'm making a difference for parents, right? Like I feel like I've got that stage of my career where it's, much more about let's solve some problems for parents now, right? Like I'm a parent myself and I don't feel like these problems are solved. So super, super fun to do that.
And creating something from nothing and getting a compliment from it. How is
Yeah.
that?
That's the best feeling in the world, let me tell you. Like it's great to work on a large team, on a large product. If you think about, for example, um, let's take a recent example. Let's say you're working for SpaceX and you were responsible for, building the Dragon crew capsule, right? So you're responsible for some component in that, maybe a screen or maybe a seat or an armrest or something like that, right? Like, wow, like super amazing. Like your stuff's flying into space. It's like people are going to go to Mars on that, right? Like you're servicing the International Space Station. Really awesome, awesome technology. A great feeling, right? That's sort of how I feel about most of what I've done in my career is I've built pieces of infrastructure that have enabled, and contributed to things like that. And I think that's the best feeling in the world, especially I think starting a company, like for any of the entrepreneurs that are watching your channel, I think companies starting a company has probably at least two, maybe three super interesting phases that are really fun in different ways. The first phase is, of course, the pre-customer phase, pre-customer, pre-product, right? You're starting from nothing. You're starting from an idea on the back of a napkin, with some friends, with a new vision. That first phase, as you go from nothing to something, and you build your first iteration of the product, and it's kind of pre-customer, and so you don't have a lot of people you have to maintain and do a lot of. There's no overhead. That's in other words, it's just vision and execution, and it's super fun. And then phase two. So again, I think there's three phases. I'm thinking through this more. The second, and that's really really fun because you're moving really fast. Like you're building from scratch. Like one day you have nothing, the next day you have a feature, and something works, right? And that just feels great because you high velocity. You feel like you're really moving the needle. The next phase is once you get that product you built or that service you built in front of customers, and they start adopting. And that adrenaline rush you get when somebody swipes their credit card, you're like, wow, like I created value for somebody, like, and they believed, like I created enough value, they swiped their credit card. Like, how cool is that? No matter whether it's $1 or, $500,000, depending on who you're selling to, you have to have the right expectations on what that credit card swipe is going to be. But that's just like a really great feeling. And I think the third really fun phase of a startup is at scale, right? So you've gotten through the build, the first iteration of the product. People started swiping their credit cards. Now you have effectively a data source. This is all of your customers about how you can serve them better, because you can go ask them. You don't have to guess anymore, right? Like you can actually go ask your customer, do you like this feature or not? What about if we did it this way? What if we did it this way? Like, what if we added this whole new feature? Would you pay me more money? All right. Like, or whatever, right? So you have a good data point because that's very actionable advice, right? You get very, very good data from going to talk to your customers. Your innovation trajectory changes a little bit as well because it changes to servicing the customer base a bit more than trying to find a new customer base in many cases. And so that changes the way your company works, which is also really interesting and exciting if you think about building a company as an engineering project. I think, how does it need to change? Where do the levers that have tweakable, where are the knobs that you can change? Where do they need to be, and how do you keep iterating on it? And then the third phase is once you get to scale, and now it becomes a lot more about keeping the team aligned to the vision and making sure the company is remaining relevant in the space. Right. And so in that case, it's all about growth, and it's about how do you manage growth so that you're a great place to work for your employees, as well as how do you deliver huge value for your customers. Right. So that navigating that at scale, you can imagine, let's say you're a 1,000 person company or you're a 100,000 person company, the things you need to do to make sure that your employees have a great place to work are going to be very different at those two scales versus, a 3-person company. 3-person company, right? Like everyone can talk to everybody. So it's pretty straightforward. But, at 50 or 60 people, that changes. You can't really, have a personal relationship with all 60 people in your company, that's super deep. And then imagine you're 1,000 or 100,000. It's just not even practical to even try. Right. At that stage. I think there's some research that says, an average human can have about 150, kind of close connections that they can maintain. Right. And so if you see your life as walking through a ever shifting pattern of about 150 people, it's, and how many of those are you going to dedicate to your professional life versus your personal life? That's pretty interesting, I think.
So you have created something that works between parents and children. And I can understand working in different companies and different roles, understanding the product management, sales,
Yep.
business aspect of the technology, as well as the development of a product. So can I say you understand the emotion and the logic?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. The emotion and the logic are both critical. You have to service both. It's not enough to solve somebody's problem. You have to solve it in a way that's meaningful for them, right? Like, and I think that's why with Minecraft Playdates, the messaging and kind of our strategy and the problem we're trying to solve with parents is really appealing to their ability to let their kids play in something that they might not have. If you just go and look at Minecraft, they're like, well, there's a list of 20 servers built into the game. Each of those servers has thousands of people on it, tens of thousands of people on it, maybe hundreds of thousands of people on it. Do I really want my kid playing there? Right? Like, and you take that whole stress away because you give some ability for the parents to control who they're playing with. And I think it's as simple as that, right? Like that's a bit of parenting philosophy, right? Like some people are much more free range with their kid. You kind of let your kid go experience the world and, right away from the beginning, without any filters. And other parents want to put some filters on so they can mediate how quickly their kids, go. And we personally don't have an opinion. Obviously for our own kid, we have an opinion, but for other people's kids, we think that's the parent's choice. And we're just a tool to help them, should they decide, the right thing to do is some kind of, some filter or some kind of limits around what they can do. I think there's a lot of emotional content in that, right? Because it's, the kids are probably asking them to go play on that, that server with 1,000 people on it that they watched on, they heard about on YouTube or something, right? Right. So their parents are kind of, weighing the pros and cons, and then I think that calculus for them, it's not a very analytical thing, right? It's a very it's all tied up in what's the right way to raise a kid, right? Which as far as I can tell, there's no right answer, there's lots of ways that work. So I think, that's a very emotional connection with the parents that are going to be the subscribers to the service. While the kids aren't thinking about this. They just want to be like, hey, can I play Minecraft? Can I play in that mini game? Can I play the Bed Wars mini game? Or whatever it is that they want to do in Minecraft. And so those are navigating those two sets of features. That features for parents and features for kids is really interesting. And then you start adding on esports clubs to that, right? Not only I think there's a lot less. Now you've got a lot of team building and team style play in the esports area. And that's, I think, really interesting to think about. Like what kind of, if you're going to run an esports league and you're going to have tournaments and you're going to stream them on YouTube or on Twitch or whatever, like what's the right, there's a whole bunch of features there, and things you can do to support that. So I think that's the other really interesting thing, in that space. And that's true no matter, whether it's Minecraft, like what we're doing today, an enterprise, some enterprise software like I've done in my past and probably will do in my future, or anything else. Like, why do phones have this form factor, right? Like there's some emotion to this. Why are coffee mugs shaped the way they are, right? Like there's an emotional and a bunch of features there from a consumption basis, right? So it's both. It's really interesting to navigate the emotional content of a product and how it feels to somebody. In addition to, does it get the job done that they're trying to get done with it? Is this a good mug to deliver my coffee? It turns out I like this mug a lot, so it's the one I almost always use, and I have 5 mugs in the cupboard. So it must do something right.
And it's not easy for you to reach everywhere. Can I say you have understood what exactly works?
Not sure I completely understand your question, but I'll give it an attempt. It's really hard to reach everywhere. Completely agree, especially as a startup. In the entrepreneurship journey, one of the lessons I've learned is effectively, depending on how much funding and capital, quote unquote capital you can throw at something, it sort of defines the approach you need to take. If you're going to build a company in a space with large incumbents, and just to give you some random hypothetical example, I think you just had Jeff Barr from AWS on. Obviously, AWS is an amazing business, really mad props, and Jeff's a great guy. Really interesting. If let's say you wanted to build a business to compete with Amazon, you can't really come out and that can't be your headline messaging, right? You can't come at them, in like head on, let's say, right? You need to find a niche where they're not servicing, win that niche, get to become well known for that small market that's too small for Amazon to care about, right? And really win well, make those people evangelists for you because they like your company and the way you did things. And then you leverage that you've built that base. There's a customer base that is now very loyal to your product and your way of looking at the market. And then you can keep doing that for all these underserved niche places that independently aren't big enough for Amazon to care about. And to continue the example, I'm not picking on Amazon by any stretch, or necessarily giving your listeners any great insight about how to compete with them. I think it's really good just because to get the scale difference, like they're obviously high scale. It's hard to attack head on because if you attack a company head on in the space that they're the dominant player in, they have the resources to basically outcompete you with that customer. For every advertisement you put out, they can put out 10 that say the opposite, right? And who's going to win in that game? Clearly, whoever's spending more money, and they're going to have to be able to spend more money than you. And so that's why a more subtle approach is typically necessary, right? Is find an underserved market. In my case today, that underserved market is parents of kids that want to play Minecraft. Mostly because all the other Minecraft server hosting companies aren't focused on them. They're focused on people that are interested in how do I get the best performance out of my server. I think I need this much RAM. I need this much compute, right? And so I'm going to those are going to be my dominant criteria to pick, which product am I going to buy from you, right? That's not on the top of parents' minds. And so that's our, I think a differentiator, about how to think about those spaces is we'll win with places where the existing companies can't or don't want to serve, those kind of customers. And then maybe someday, we'll be big enough to actually go compete in that space as well. But, I think, we'll see that, that's predicting the future.
Thinking as a parent and solving problems for parents and listening to them and getting feedback from them as a parent for parents. So how is that?
Yeah, really great. I think one of the things that differentiates a startup from a very large company is we can offer very personalized support, mostly because as you get to a certain scale, you end up having to build a team to handle basically customer communications, right? It's not coming straight from the founders of the company anymore or the leadership of the company. And it's unfortunate, but necessary because you just can't scale. Like there's only so many hours in a day. And so I think in general, if you're going to build a startup, one of the things that often appeals to customers is the fact that they have a direct line into, somebody better than an average support person in a call center somewhere, right? Which can often be a frustrating experience for them because people at the call centers may not be well trained, or may not be super deep experts in the space. Where they might be running off a checklist of, or a script of a customer says, I have this problem, try these solutions, right? And there's not a lot of space to innovate in there. And they may not have the experience to innovate. Whereas if you're talking to an expert, right, somebody that built the company and built the product, they're much more likely to going to be able to answer your question. And not only that, really understand, oh, did you find a bug in the product? Is that something we need to go fix? Or is that, oh yeah, you know what? Here, we can help you because we understand, what's going on. Like they're the people that effectively in a large company are the same kind of people that would write that script for the first line support person. Right. And they're much more of an expert. And I think that's super exciting. At the beta stage, it's a lot of one-on-one with our customers, right? Like, in fact, that's a really, really important piece, I think, of most betas during, or early releases, is to cap the number of people that are participating so that you can continue to have hands-on contact with every one of those participants. Certainly at the early stages. I think there could be a phase where you think the product's pretty well baked and all you need to do is test scalability. And in which case, I think, doing some kind of invite or, opening it up to a much wider set of people without making, kind of it's ready for prime time promise, can actually be useful and valuable for the participants. But yeah, it's been really fun, talking to parents in Singapore, talking to parents, in Europe, talking to parents, all over in the US, of course, and, helping them let their kids have fun, right? Like it's been really fulfilling. And now starting to talk to educators in the esports league, I feel like we can really amp up that ability to make a difference there, right? If you think about the average, educator, they have a goal, and the thing that they're good at is the education piece. And the thing that's for them, kind of what I would think of as overhead, is managing the technology that underlies whatever the course they want to teach is. They want to teach how to build Minecraft, mods or whatever. They want to teach an architecture class and they want to use Minecraft as the virtual world where kids are building stuff. Which I think is awesome, but do you think that teacher really wants to be an expert in tuning, Minecraft servers? Like that's a cost for them, right? And so this is, if you think about the entrepreneurship is all about finding a spot where you think you can create value for somebody, more value than you're going to charge them, essentially, right? Like what's going to motivate somebody to buy something from you is what you're charging for them. And you're always going to think it's worth more than they're going to think it's worth, right? Just because it's your pet, it's the thing you built. And I think that's finding that sweet spot in understanding what value you're creating for them, and looking at that kind of dispassionately, taking your emotion out of it, and making sure the price you're charging is actually a fair price for that, and then making sure you can build a viable business, by scaling that piece of the equation, right? Throw in more customers on one side, and your unit cost economics, your per customer, you're making more money than you're losing, in some sense, right? Like, in that margin gives you ability to continue growing.
You actually started growing with a computer that your parents gave you, and you started learning from it, and you spent a lot of years in understanding it, and also uh, uh, using it for your growth. And with the product that your parents gave you, now you become parent, and you are doing it for children, and you understand both the perspectives.
Yeah.
More than learning from others, you actually in your own life you have understood the two perspectives. So can I say this product that you built is more your personal?
Yeah, so it actually is a great observation. I've never thought about it that way. I always have been passionate about learning how to build something. If I see something in the world, I want to understand how it works. So I don't know. It's the way I was born. I'm born as an engineer, I guess, right? Like whether it's something physical or something software. I got obsessed mostly with software, but I build things around the house too. And I think this is a good example of me getting to a stage in my life where I'm realizing the problems. There's this interesting solving problems for parents as there are solving problems for large companies. And this is a chance to have a more direct impact on parents' lives, and that feels really good, right? Like, it feels great when a parent can get their kid playing with their friends, and now they can they have something that they share, that shared experience that they can all can all do, and same thing with my kid and his friends right now. He loves team sports, and so getting him to go play with a bunch of friends on a Minecraft server, I think that's where they're kind of organizing and making up their own games and so on. It's awesome to see.
And you understood the software and hardware.
Yeah.
So when it comes to human being, the hardware and the software, the psychological thing, and also the physical body. So based upon your experience, you have worked in large companies and also with large enterprises, talking with great people. Also, you have created huge revenue for companies with your knowledge. So, what do you understood about this? Apart from technology,
Yeah.
as a human being, uh, this hardware and this software.
Great question. Really interesting way to think about it as well. Are humans just hardware with some software running on them, or is there something more? That's a question nobody has the answer to, right? Let me think about this for a minute. It's I'll come back to. I feel like one of the things I'm good at is being able to solve problems for building something to solve somebody's problem, right? And then being able to give it to them, so they have a better experience. And I think if I think about this, in the big picture view, any one thing I'm building for somebody, in the history of humanity, is it's this like micro improvement in our experience as humans, but it's a contributing factor, right? Like, and I one of my favorite things is I was teaching a course for new hires at Google, and one of the questions I would ask them is, let's take your average day. How much you can accomplish. And of course, this is all business context, right? So how much you can accomplish in this case for Google in an average day. And I want to do a poll. 20 years from now, are you going to be able to have more impact, equal impact, or the same amount of impact? Sorry, less, equal, or more impact in any given day than you do today? And of course, everybody guesses they're going to be able to have more impact, right? Which stands to reason. If you look at the history of humanity, it is a history of more and more impact with less and less time invested and less overhead invested. Building a pyramid used to be how many counted in lives, right? And now, building, if anybody gets hurt building a skyrise, right? Like that's actually a really bad thing, right? So, stands to reason there's a lot of automation in there, right? And so obviously in building and in a lot of areas in life, right? Things have gotten way more efficient and way more capable. And so I like to think that the things I've been able to deliver and will continue to deliver over my career are incremental steps into making us, much more, be able to focus our energies much more in the future. Even after today, post product, I can focus my energies as a parent much more on, other things than managing Minecraft servers, right? Like just to bring it back to today's example. But overall, my whole career is let's make it better for people to communicate more easily, store things more easily, retrieve them. All of these are incremental steps in making people more productive and be able to focus much more on things they care about and less on, what I would say the infrastructure of life, or business. If the average person in the medieval time had to probably spend 4 or 8 hours a day, just to exist, just to, get themselves in a position where they could exist through the winter or for the next season or whatever, right? Hard work in the fields to harvest the food and so on. And humanity as a whole, like the average person, mostly, in many cases, there's still disparity here. Of course, it's a big problem, but most people, the most people in the world that are in a position where they don't have to worry about that kind of thing as kind of number one stress in their life, right? It's maybe it's not a stress at all yet, but we're working on it. But for most people, it's not the number one, and I think that's you just kind of keep projecting that out year after year, decade after decade, eon after eon. I think we end up in a really good place, based on incremental advancements that people like you and me are making in the world. So
today you're contributing, you're giving service, and you're helping people. You're changing something today. Uh, uh, the number is big compared to the number that you did as an individual person talking with computer in your beginning days. So you are the best example for anybody. Your growth or your graph will say how much you impacted with the thought process that you have or the understanding that you have about technology and about business or about like you are doing business now. You're helping parents and children. So this complete understanding how this experience you are using and how you are improving yourself also. What is your intention and what is your intensity behind this, and what is your intuition to and what is your goal, where you want to reach?
yeah, great set of questions. On the average day, working, I'm not thinking about really, this level of big, big, long-reaching kind of things. These are like, reflecting on where the individual decisions I'm making on a daily basis have taken me, and so on. And so I think that's really interesting. By and large, my main hope is that, I've made the world an incrementally better place in the areas that I'm an expert and can contribute, in helping foster communication, helping people do more and spend more time with their families and so on. And I think that's at the end of the name of the game, ultimately. And, having fun doing it along the way, right? Like the technology itself is actually pretty exciting, that underlies it. And so I think that's probably my best answer. I don't know when, I'm only a little bit gray right now so I've still got a bunch of years to think about, what's my legacy. And mostly, it's evolving around, making the world a better place in the ways that I can help with, by and large.
And at last, what do you say about your contribution to the world?
It's a great question. It remains to be seen whether anything I've done, is a great contribution to the world. Certainly not a motivating factor that, something like, people know my name after I'm dead. I think a motivating factor is just the fact that, I can make people's lives, better. Whether they remember my name or not doesn't matter. What matters is, hey, what? I did something impactful for them today. And I built a piece of the base that the next generation is going to be able to build on, in order to, take us to that next level. And, I'm not a city planner. I'm not, I'm not an economist. What I know is, how to look at, maybe one step down from that and look at, analyze a space, see where people are spending time, and then optimize it for them, essentially. I think that's what I'm good at, is coming up with solutions to make things better, than the way you used to do it. So that's sort of what I hope. And hey, having fun building a family business along the way, I think is one of those things I hadn't done before. I'd always kept business and personal life pretty separate. And so this is a fun experience to do this, with the family. And my son is a budding entrepreneur. He's 9. He's always coming up with businesses to build, to solve problems for people in his own way. And so this is a great place to kind of harness a bunch of that energy, of his, and actually, walk through as a learning experience. Here's all the pieces of company building that are important, from the product development all the way through the go-to-market and the servicing of customer problems. So he gets to see all of that. And so when he goes and builds a company, ideally because he's getting that, that experience early, his is going to be, he's going to avoid a bunch of mistakes a lot of entrepreneurs make, later on, right? Because he'll have seen it, and he'll have seen like, oh yeah, this is the things we need to do. And then of course he'll learn from my mistakes, hopefully, as well as, along the way.
So family is helping other families.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the purpose of mcplaydates.com. That's our real purpose there is our family helping other families, in this admittedly, people playing Minecraft is maybe not, it's not like solving world hunger. It's not like a super pressing problem in the grand scheme of things, but you would be surprised how many parents, are spending time thinking about it. Right. And so it's an area where we have expertise that we can solve, some of the day-to-day problems that these folks are having. So really, really exciting.
You want to add additional features to it?
Yeah, we're always seeking input from customers and folks like that, in order to make sure it's the best service for them. So, if any of your viewers sign up, in the sign up email, there's even a link to a video chat with me. So if you have some feedback, you're happy to jump on a video chat with them immediately. Gives you some sense. Obviously you can't do that as a large company, right? Like, there's some point at which that will fail to scale, but we're still at the scale right now where there's a few hours in my day that I can actually spend not managing the logistics of a company and actually go and get on that call with a customer and get a real feel for where they're struggling. And that's super valuable to me. Even at scale, I always make it a point to make sure that I carve out time for that. Just it keeps my feet on the ground as a leader to make sure I'm always solving the actual end customer problem, and I'm not just lost in a spaghetti of organizing how a company's working without it. So I always get my fingers on the pulse of the actual person we're benefiting.
Great. Can you spell your work to my podcast listeners so that they can see the work that you're doing?
Yeah. Our website is mcplaydates.com. That's mcplaydates.com. And there's, plenty of content on there to explain what it is. And there's a place that, if they're curious, there's a mailing list they can just sign up for. And we'll, send them a note once or twice a month about what we're up to. And then of course you can subscribe and, send a support request or whatever, and you get, that lands right in my inbox right now.
I'll put your links in the description of this video on YouTube. People who can see the video on YouTube can see your links. And also I'll put on the screen as well. They can see the entire conversation, your links. So
Great.
As an entrepreneur, as a person who worked in different organizations and now owning the family business. So what is your observation about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube? And also my questioning in this conversation.
Yeah. Jeff Barr is a great, I think one of the ones I just watched recently. It's the one that's top of mind. And obviously, he's also a long time technologist, been in the computer industry since, its early days. And so just get some of that insight. And one of the things that's really interesting from him, that I picked up on and very much agree with, from his perspective, is our industry hasn't really mellowed out at all, right? If anything, it's accelerated. Like he said it very differently, right? Like he said he thought in his later years, he was going to have a kind of a chill and easy kind of like, ride out this, this thing and things get easy. But in fact, the last 20 years of his career have been the most interesting of his career. And I actually see this across technology in general. I feel like it used to be one or two industries would go through innovation phases where that whole industry overhauls itself and makes itself better. Telecom, maybe on one hand, maybe it's manufacturing, maybe it's, something else. I feel like today, all industries are going through massive innovation curves concurrently, all at the same time, right? Bio and healthcare, manufacturing is constantly being innovated. Obviously, computer technology, space, telecommunications. Like name an industry that's not going through heavy innovation right now. And I feel like as a consequence, we're living, if you're a technologist, we're living in the most interesting era of technology ever. And there are no signs that that's a blip and then it's going to slow down. Right. I think. And so super exciting, right? There's always some crazy, new thing to think about. Whether you're a blockchain enthusiast and you believe that, electronic money built on blockchain is the future, right? Like even the monetary system is going through a bunch of innovation right now, and that's been pretty stable since, Roman times. Money hasn't changed that much, until recently. So I think, really interesting era, no matter what industry you're in, to be able to actually make big contributions that get multiplied over time since they're the base layer that everything else will get innovated on.
And what do you say about my questioning in this conversation?
Great set of questions. What I like about your questions is they're very open-ended. And so, it's not a lot of what I would call transactional questions, right? Like you don't ask the standard kind of transactional questions that most interviews ask that everybody has pre-prepared, responses for. And so it's a much more free-flowing kind of conversation. Maybe leads me to pontificate a bit too much, because it does keep me on my toes, and it's stuff. By and large, like what's really interesting about this is, and your style is like, these are not like the kind of questions I would have expected, right? At all. And so I think that's super fun to do. It's not a very traditional interview, process.
I personally did masters in software engineering, also bachelors in computer science and engineering. Right now, I'm getting trained as a AWS Cloud DevOps Engineer role.
I saw that.
Apart from this, I'm talking with experts like you who are already in the industry, who have worked in different products, also different businesses, also from different industries. More than 550 interviews I did in last 2 years. From 100 plus countries. So how this experience talking with experts like you who already solved different problems, have already seen how things work, learning from you, how I'm going to use this knowledge if I work in IT in coming days.
Yeah. Short answer, I have a couple answers here, and I think there's a couple of things important to early on in a career. And if you're familiar with the idea of compounding interest in something, I think that really is applicable in your career as well. I think it's important early in your career to pick up something you're really excited about and really get to the heart of it, right? Like feel like you fully understand the space. In a lot of ways, that's really important. And that probably takes, 3 to 5 years of deeply, doing that job. In the case of, what you mentioned, doing that DevOps kind of job, in a meaningful way for, I think, extended period of time. Because what you realize at the end of, what I realized coming out of the end of the start of my career, when I kind of transitioned to the more senior phase of my career, was during that time, I was able to build a toolbox of techniques that meant that most of the day-to-day stuff was sort of at subconscious level. I didn't really think about how to do the job so much as I had to think about, what is it that I need to deliver. And then I was pretty confident I could deliver it, right? At a certain scale. But in order to build that toolbox, have that set of tools that you can just apply instead of developing the tools and then applying the tools, just makes you that you have a much deeper understanding of your space. And so I think that's very hard to do if you're constantly. A lot of people do have a lot of interest, but if you don't actually spend that 3 to 5 years picking one of them and kind of deep diving into it, it's going to be hard later in life to have built the depth of experience that will lead to you being super confident in a given area, right? Like, so let's say today you're doing DevOps engineering and I don't know, 10 years from now, you want to start a DevOps company, right? The people you need to hire, how are you going to evaluate them if you've been jumping around and kind of, don't have deep expertise in the space, right? And so I think that's one way to see it, right? Because what you're going to want to do is going to evolve over time. But I think what you're doing with YouTube is a great example and of a couple things on the entrepreneurship journey. One, it's something you're super passionate about, and you can tell that because you've done a ton of interviews. And two, I think the other really interesting thing about it is you found a niche where nobody else is focusing, right? Which is, I'm an average, contributor in this technology ecosystem. And I don't think I've seen a lot of other averagely successful, let's call it, contributors, on a lot of other channels. And so I think you found a niche of finding an ecosystem and talking to people that are responsible for a lot of the success of that space, but may not be the name brands that you've heard about, right? And I think that's like a great, that's a great way to break in and to establish your niche and your learning experience about how to run these interviews and so on, and then use that to leverage it in whatever you want the channel to become, right? And so I think that's taking that same kind of concept and applying that over and over again throughout your career, in different areas. That deep dive phase where you figure all that out and you get to the heart of it, and then you execute it for a while, and you figure out where the failure modes are and where you have to tweak and tune in order to avoid them. That process that you learn deep diving the first time, applying it effectively, you would just end up applying it over and over again in your career, except the scale that you're executing at is bigger. First, you're an individual contributor. Second, you're a publisher. Third, you're probably doing all the editing and all the publishing and like everything yourself, right? And eventually, hey, if it's successful, I gotta hire people for that, and what job you need them to do, right? And so you're much better at being able to run that. But if you hadn't done that, if you had just gone straight to hiring, chances are you hire the wrong person the first try, right? And that's a more expensive. You can still learn from it, but I think it's the more expensive way to learn, unless you have a big, large pool of capital that enables you to learn that way. But most people don't. So I think that's the fun.
It's an expensive observation that I got.
Exactly right. Like, how long have you been doing the channel? I think it's been like three years or something.
Yeah. Almost 3 years.
Yeah. So I think and let me turn it around and ask you a question. Like, what's from the 3 years worth of running this, if you could distill it down into one key learning, what's the biggest one?
To see different human beings talking about different things in different ways and in different styles, having completely different backgrounds and experiences. So every time when I listen to a new person, they talk something that didn't happen in other person's life. Whatever the problem they say, that is, if they say 10 problems, at least 1 or 2 problems will be different. So 8 problems I will listen from everybody, but those 2 problems I can carry with me.
I think that's like, I'm not sure if this was your intent when you started the channel, or if it was like you just really interested in what people were thinking. But if you think about what you just said, that's going to be true for your career as well. No matter what you do, 8 out of 10 things you have to do are going to be the same things anyone would have to do in that space, right? And then there's two of those 8 are going to be where you can innovate, right? And I think, and that's that, like having, you probably know what they all are. I haven't watched enough of your videos yet, but I watched I listened to a podcast, 20-Minute VC, which I don't know if you're familiar with this channel. The guy started it when he was 19 years old. He wanted to become a VC, a venture capitalist. And so his idea was, I'm going to go interview venture capitalists and make a 20-minute podcast, for each one I interview. I listened to him in 2016 I had a 3-hour commute every day, hour and a half each way. So I listened to 3 hours of 20-minute podcasts. He had interviewed, I think, 6,000 venture capitalists. By this point, I listened to probably 2,000 of those interviews, and it was sort of the same observation that he had a much more structured interview approach and kind of asked everybody the same questions and so on. I got a really good feel after 2,000 episodes where the VCs can innovate and where they're just following the game plan, right? Like, and it was really interesting, as an entrepreneur myself and having sat on all sides of the table, it's really interesting to be able to see that from the investor side, to think about next time I'm pitching to an investor for funding, here's the checklist of where I have to pattern match against, the standard that I have to execute against. And here's a couple of areas where I can innovate. But I need to understand for that venture capitalist, where do they see their 20% ability to innovate versus somebody else's, and not to play to that, right? Like how can I play to that piece of their curve?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely you'll have a lot of content to learn from that person.
Yeah. And same thing with you, I think, as I've started, you reached out to me on Twitter, I think, but for some reason I couldn't actually read your message, and I don't know, whatever. And so I haven't had a chance to go through that much of your content, but I'm hoping to gain some really interesting insights as I go through, and catch up on some of your older content.
All my interviews are as interesting as this interview.
Awesome. Well, it remains to be seen whether this is interesting or not.
It's one of the quality conversations that I had today.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Is your goal, like, how do you find people to interview?
We have internet. We have a lot of mediums. I have work to show them, and they'll watch some of my videos, because I connect with different people. They will connect with some people, not necessarily with everybody. So that's how. But most of the people, the common thing that they say is like me being diverse, connecting with completely different people is not that. They say that you have some great communication style that is connecting with everybody. So keep doing what you're doing. Like even when I interviewed a person from NASA, who works in NASA, I asked him about the communication that happens in ISS, or how much far we as a human beings have sent some information, and when we are going to achieve the light speed. These kind of questions. So that makes them think.
It definitely, yeah. Lots of challenges with the physics, I think, to deal with there. Cool.
Can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yep. And we send out newsletters with Minecraft Playdates from time to time. Is it okay if I link to your content on?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. Should help you with with viewership, and should help us as well, right? Get our name out there. So
yeah, definitely. I'll put this interview on my website as well. All my 10 podcast platforms with YouTube links, and also your biodata, your company, your work, everything will be there on my site as well. They can see who visits.
Yeah, sounds great.
Thanks, Ted, for your valuable time and your valuable words. Definitely what you're doing will reach maximum people, because what I understood is you're not just a technologist, you're also a parent who has personal emotions which are connected with the product that you're building. So definitely it will reach everywhere.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Well, maybe we can check back in a year or two and see how the business has grown.
Yeah, next year I'll connect with you again.
Sounds great. Sai, awesome conversation today, and great to meet you.
Thanks, sir. Keep going.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.